But the way in which every demographic has turned against Israel over this shit in Gaza, except essentially boomer Republicans who are still as strong as they've ever been in supporting them. They know they've lost control of the narrative, and they know that they've lost control of the youth in America. And that at some point, you know, those 70-year-olds watching cable news are going to age out and die, and the people in charge are going to be this generation that has a totally different view of Israel than previous generations. They know that is, you know, the idea that it's just accepted as normal that the politicians for your country must worship this other country. And you're like, so what, did that other country like beat us in a war and they're occupying us now? And you're like, no, you're the superpower. They're your welfare country, you know? But yet you must go kiss their wall. You must say, hey, Tammy Bruce from the State Department. Literally just, and I know she was kind of being tongue-in-cheek, but where she goes, we're the greatest country in the world. Well, second greatest to Israel. And you're like, what?
Was she being tongue-in-cheek?
I don't know exactly. She kind of...
It was a weird thing to say.
It's still... That is a weird thing for any representative of your government to say. If anyone sat there and said, just went, you know, I think America's the greatest country in the world. Well, Finland, I guess, is the greatest. And we're number 2. You'd be like, what? I'm like, Finland's a cool country. I got nothing against them, but what are you talking about, you know? And, you know, Israel is... It's really in many ways like the third rail of American politics. Like, this is the thing you are not allowed to talk about. This is the thing that would get you fired from CNN, would get you kicked out of DC, would get your career ruined. You know, Pat Buchanan made a joke once on the McLaughlin Group, like years ago, like decades ago. He made a joke once where he said something about, he said Congress is Israel-occupied territory or something like that. And he, for the rest of his career, this was the scandal. This was, hit pieces were written about this. Now, the young people are totally outside of that ecosystem, and they're just hearing from different people, and they're like, no, I'm not buying it. And it's, you know, I think it's a mix of a few things. Like, I think it's just that, you know, we have the technology, it's in 4K. You can see what Israel's doing to Gaza. It is so evil that it's damn near impossible to find a way. I mean, some people do, but it is really difficult to find a way to be like, I'm actually okay with that. It's been going on for years at this point. And then the second thing is just that, like, the relationship between the U.S. government and the Israeli government is so freaking bizarre that once you see it, and once a whole generation of young people see it, it's like impossible for them to unsee it. And you know, it's just too weird. But really, I do think it's the relationship. It's how horrible what Israel's doing is, and it's how clearly it's not in our national interest. But you do kind of have to question the relationship between DC and Tel Aviv and like what is going on here, because this is so utterly bizarre. You know, it's so crazy to see like the American people are against what Israel's doing to Gaza. It obviously hurts it hurts our, as they use in the preamble to the Constitution. I like that phrase, domestic tranquility, right? This is destroying our domestic tranquility. We got protests. We got people fighting over this stuff. We're pissing off the Muslim world again, which we've already had to deal with, them hating our guts. Now
we're deporting students.
We're deporting legal residents because they had the wrong opinion. This is all, and like, it's impossible to not look at this and go like, hey, what's going on here? And they don't have any answer for that. And you know, the other thing, too, is that it's just, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of people now trying to jump off of the sinking ship. You know, a lot of people who are even like supporters of Israel who are kind of going like, I think they are going a little too far on this one. And they're trying, because it's just, you can see the writing on the wall all over the place, man. Like, you're going to be looked at. This is going to be the period. And it's not even like supporting the war in Iraq. It's like much worse than that, dude. Like, you're just supporting this destruction of these. They just launched another offensive on Gaza City the other day. They're bombing rubble. Like, it's just it's biblical levels of evil. And, you know, we're sitting here, like, even as we're having this conversation now, I remember like coming on the podcast like a couple years ago, you know, like when this conflict first started, and then when it would go, and it was almost like I was coming on like to be like, look, let me present the argument for why we shouldn't support what Israel's doing here, and let me like try to like present the other side of the debate. I feel now like the debate's over. I don't even think there's like much of a debate to be had. I'll keep doing them if somebody wants to come debate about the issue. But what are we talking about here? Dude, South Africa brought a genocide case to the International Court of Justice. And the International Court of Justice ruled that what Israel was doing to Gaza was plausibly a genocide. It's just very obvious that this doesn't serve our country's interest in any way at all. You know, I was listening to Netanyahu's an interview he did the other day. He was on with our friend Konstantin Kassan on trigonometry. And what was he saying at one point? He goes, "We're fighting Hamas, so you don't have to," or something like. Does anybody believe that Hamas was about to mount an attack on the United States of America? They were going to take over if it wasn't for Israel sticking up for us and just destroying the entire strip. And it's ridiculous. It's like you'll still, to this day, I'll be in like a debate or like a panel or something like that, and someone will still start with the question like, do you think Israel has the right to exist? And isn't it amazing that over the last 2 years, that's been the question that's asked so much, when very clearly a more relevant question would have been, does Gaza have a right to exist? Because it doesn't now. You know, like that was the only existence that was ever up for debate. But they flip the thing around and go, well, you don't think Israel has a right to exist? You're like, I think Israel does not have a right to do what it's doing to Gaza. And, you know, the Israel project, or the Zionist project, always relied on this kind of claim, which is a crazy claim in a way. It's like a supernatural property right claim, right? That, you know, like that you have this, which, you know, if you go, there was that great documentary on the settlers in the West Bank, and they'll all tell you, to a man or to a woman, they focus a lot on that godmother of the settlers woman, but they'll all explain to you, like in very plain English with a Hebrew accent, that God promised them all this land. And so, like, God promised us all this land. So, like, I don't know who these other people are here, but God didn't promise it to them. He promised it to us. And so, you know, that's kind of the claim, that we're the original people of this land. And so we have like a right to come back here. Now, forget for a second the fact that nobody conceives of property rights in this fashion in any other way. Like, nobody thinks I could like come up with a DNA test and be like, oh, I've got some Ukrainian in here. All right, well, I'm going to march into Ukraine, knock on a door and be like, this is actually my house because I was here 1,000 years ago.